Welcome back. Stimulate your eyes, ears, and brain at theblaze.com/TV.
Brad Meltzer is a good friend of the program. He is a New York Times best-selling author. You probably know him from the History Channel show Decoded. He has numerous best-selling books. His new book is The Fifth Assassin, and he actually picks up something that I am really intrigued about, and that is, and I wish more people knew, the assassins of presidents in the past have a lot in common. A lot in common. And his new book is, what if they not only had a lot in common, what if they were all kind of working towards the same goal? Brad is here to explain and tell us about his new book. Hi, Brad. How are you?
I'm good, Glenn. How you doing, pal?
Very, very good. So tell me your theory here in the book. I mean, I know it's fiction, but tell me the theory you're operating.
Yeah, no, you hit it right on the head. You know, I started with a guy who came to me and said, Brad, I work at a museum in Washington, D.C. that almost nobody knows about, and you got to come see what we have here. And, you know, I get all these crazy letters all the time from people who see the TV show, and I said, just tell me what you have. And he said, well, I have pieces of Abraham Lincoln's skull, I have the bones of John Wilkes Booth, and I have actually the bullet that killed Abraham Lincoln. Would you like to come see it? And the government has these things. And I went to the museum. He didn't just have artifacts from the Lincoln assassination. He had the other assassinations as well. And it just got me thinking, you know, what do these assassins have in common? And as you said, that's the plot of the book, is a serial killer is meticulously recreating the crimes of all the presidential assassins from John Wilkes Booth to Lee Harvey Oswald and wants to be the fifth assassin. That's the plot. But the theory is what they do have in common. And when you look at the assassins, you know, the Secret Service did a study, and they said, if you look at all the assassins who have tried to kill a president, they basically have nothing in common. They're of every socioeconomic background. They're young and they're old. But if you look at the four that actually did kill a president, it's amazing. You know, none of them did drugs. They weren't big drinkers. All four were surprisingly and almost outrageously neat. And none of them, except for that moment when they pulled the trigger, was ever identified as a troublemaker. And most interesting to me, 3 out of the 4 of them were in their 20s. But beyond that, they were all kind of, these are the two things that I couldn't shake. Is one thing they had in common was simply they were all 4 were men with a cause, and we all know the power of that. Mm-hmm. But when it comes to assassins, they can be divided into 2 categories, howlers and hunters. And the howlers, they'll threaten us by sending scary notes, and they call in a bomb threat. But the good news is they rarely follow through. They just want attention, so howling and making noise is enough for them. It's different with hunters, though. Hunters actually research and prepare, and they plot, and they follow that path to a goal. Howlers, though, aren't interested in hunting, and hunters aren't interested in howling. And needless to say, from John Wilkes Booth to Lee Harvey Oswald, all 4 assassins were hunters.
There's also, you know, the one thing they had in common, too, is a socialist, with an exception of Booth, a socialist or communist agenda.
Yes, it's very interesting. You're out. You know, it's when you look at the background, it's amazing. Sometimes when I write these novels, I make it up. Right? We know that that's the fun of it. But I'm researching these things, and I'm going, wait a minute. You know, at the time when you look at McKinley, there was a plot to murder the top 7 leaders around the world. And then I was like, oh, wait, this is also true. Anarchists are running around when you see not just McKinley, but you see it also in Garfield's time. And then you start seeing, of course, with Lee Harvey Oswald. And then it's one of those nights where I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, am I making this plot up for this book? Or is the plot really there? And of course, you know, it is amazing when you see those things in common.
So George H.W. Bush helped you with this.
He did. You know, a couple years ago, H.W. Bush, 41, the dad who just got out of the hospital, wrote me the best fan letter I ever got, saying he liked one of my novels and would I sign a copy for him. and listen, you're the president. I'll send you a free book, right? You get a free book that day. And
well, not wait.
I know.
Not this
not
president.
Any president, right?
Yeah, not just any president. I might charge some presidents double, triple, quadruple.
That's right. I'm sorry, I teed that up too well for you.
Yes.
So, he's helped me with 3 books now. And listen, I can make up whatever I want. And we all know, though, that there are only a few people who know what it's like to sit in that White House and know for sure that someone is out there who wants to kill you. And I went to Bush and I said to him, listen, what's it like? You know, were you scared on those moments? And he was like, you know, I can't think of any moments where I was scared. And I kept going back to him and saying, were you scared when this happened? Were you scared when this happened? And he's always pretty forthright. He's at the age where, at 88 years old, there's no bravado anymore. He doesn't need to be macho. He's literally like, Brad, I'm drawing a blank. He's like, I got lots of tense. Tense is easy. He's like, but not scared. And it made me think that, when you think of a construction worker out on the edge of a girder, the fear of heights on a skyscraper is not part of the job. And that's how I think it is for, many U.S. presidents. I mean, that fear, even though it probably should be there for most of us, it's really not part of the job. And those details that Bush gave me, I put into the novel. And so that way my president, when you read The Fifth Assassin, you go, wait, that seems real. That's why, is because I like to have that source there.
So, Brad, in today's world where they're talking about gun control and everything else, does it make you tense at all to write a book where you're talking about the fifth assassin? And I know the president isn't the president in the book, but I mean, how people will say. I mean,
listen, of course. I mean, we planned this book. I've been working on it for 2 years. Little did I know, but for me, it's amazing. When I heard the news about the shootings in Aurora or even Newtown in Connecticut, so many of us react by saying, "What's the world come to?" But when I looked at it, I saw something that was familiar. I saw this kind of animal that's been part of the American experience. Because, and I know, listen, it's different. There's a difference between killing innocent children and shooting a sitting president. But a quiet, young, 20-year-old sociopath who keeps to themselves and are almost delusional in their self-importance, and they have to prove their cause through violence, that profile has been haunting us for well over a century. And I think over and over we're seeing, this isn't something that is, oh my gosh, what's the world come to? We've been here for a century and a half.
So tell me what you think, because I think the best fiction writers, in which I would put you in that category, the best fiction writers in America are the ones that you can look to, and they're the only ones that will really kind of tell you the truth on what is possible. Everybody else will hedge their bet, but you're a fiction writer, so what do you care? And you look at all of these scenarios because you're trying to come up with, what is feasible that I could tell a book about, and people will buy. It has to be at least close. What do you think happens next if the president does massive executive orders and starts to remove guns from our society? What do you think happens?
What I worry about is let's, putting aside the guns for a moment, I've spent 2 years now studying how the Secret Service keeps the president safe. And one of the people I spoke to said to me flat out that, his job, and I use this in the book because I thought it was so fascinating, is they do what's called penetration testing. And what they do is there's people in the government who are hired to break into the White House, who are hired to break in to the Pentagon, who are hired to break in. We've been doing it since World War II, but now we've taken it to a new level. And I spoke to a guy who said to me, in an unnamed inauguration, he broke into the inauguration and got underneath the president's seat where the president sits, where the parade is. And that scares the heck out of me, because you think of, forget about, the guns issue for a moment. Like, just think about how many hunters are out there, whatever they're armed with, whatever they have. It doesn't even, that's beside the point to me. And if it's that easy that's happening, it's a terrifying thought. And I'll tell you, to be completely honest with you, it scares me how easy it is. You see, if you use history as your guide, we always have to learn something from one of these assassinations, right? With Lincoln, we realized, oh my gosh, the president needs some security. Of course, it wasn't until after Garfield went down that the Secret Service finally started protecting the president. And even then, when McKinley went down, they were like, we got to treat him differently in a crowd situation. And then after JFK, they said, well, we can't leave him out in the open in a crowd situation. And each time you're kind of trying to kind of almost imagine a circle that's getting smaller and smaller around this president, trying to protect him. And the one thing you learn is how hard it is. You can't account. Think of what we just talked about. If the person you're looking for, we all think of John Malkovich, he's going to send us a note and he's going to come and he's going to get the president.
No.
That's not how it is at all. The guy you're looking for, you never know is going to be coming.
Brad Meltzer, another great book called The Fifth Assassin. If you've never read any of Brad's books, you're in for a real treat. Really
Glenn,
good.
I want to mention one thing to you is, because I know you and I once talked, I think a while back, about Camp David. And I haven't really talked about this. I love this detail. Is Camp David is a real life story someone gave me. One of the old Secret Service guys is, people know Camp David from the Accords and what they are, but what we don't realize is Camp David is a president's playground, and they can kind of go there and they can play golf and they can skeet shoot and they can get away from anything. But what they have there The most important thing they have is no press. And so when Bill Clinton took office, he said that his allergies prevented him from visiting Camp David. But when he heard that the press was barred from being there, his allergies were suddenly cured. And I love that. I love that. And it's no different for Obama or George W. Bush. They've been up there Bush was up there over a full year with no one watching. And I love that these places are right there, and you get to see the secret tunnels below them and all the fun that's there.
I will tell you that I think that with this president, his hand in our pocket is preventing him from going to Camp David. It allows him to go to Hawaii and other exotic places.
Yeah, no. Hawaii's a little bit more expensive than a helicopter ride to Camp David. Although I told you that they do have, and this is true, it's in the book, and just what, as people are starting to read it, they can see it. I found the real hidden tunnels that are below Camp David. And I love getting to Camp David and finding out things, but they told me there are real secret tunnels. They go from where, because I know you always love the insider stuff, they go from where the Secret Service compound is, and they go underneath to protect the president. I won't tell you where they come out because it will ruin Chapter 97 of the book, but where it comes out you will see in Chapter 97. And those details, it's amazing when you think about the security. The ones we see.
I really hope that you would change some of these details.
You know what? I will say it, and we talked about this once before. I did change the security entry for it.
Okay,
I never. I just got back from a USO tour.
I mean, let's not make this a how-to book. That's
no,
really,
and that's exactly right. I mean, the one thing I always do is I try to change the security protocol. I just came back from this tour with the USO over to Kuwait, and I remember emailing you from there.
Yep.
For your fans over there who kept coming up to me, and the one thing I knew right there, I saw firsthand is, I want to listen. The goal is always you want to get people to read your book, but not at the cost of our security. And so we always change the security protocol. And I always ask the Secret Service, I'm like, listen, I'm not going to put this in unless you tell me it's okay to put this one in. And they're like, change this part, you can put this part in.
All right. Brad, thank you very much. I appreciate it. The name of the book is The Fifth Assassin, and it is available in bookstores everywhere.